Family-owned Soccer Innovation is your go-to source for top-quality equipment. Whether you're a player, a supportive family member, or a dedicated coach, they have everything you need to elevate your game. For players, their innovative equipment are designed to boost your skills and performance on the pitch. From their agility cones to their portable goals, they have you covered. And family members, they offer durable equipment that's built to last because we know your support is critical to your player. Coaches, trust me, they can provide the equipment you need to run effective training sessions and shape the next generation of soccer players. Visit Soccer Innovations at soccerinnovations.com to start elevating your game with them. And if you use the code PITCH, PITCH, you can receive up to 10% off your next order. Ever tried watching your athlete's game from anywhere in the world? With Replayer, you actually can. I had a friend watch his son's game live from his flight. My son watched a live game from the car while we were driving up the California coast. It doesn't matter where you are, grandparents across the country, cousins on the other side of the world, teammates who just moved away, set up the camera, hit go live, and everyone with a link is right there on the sideline. Live streaming is free. Unlimited games, unlimited teams, unlimited users. No complex tiers. Everyone gets access. And forget waiting hours for footage. I recorded a 60-minute game and it was ready in 5 minutes. Players were clipping highlights on the ride home. One camera, made in the USA, unlimited everything. If you never want to miss those moments, head to replayer.com. The link is in the show notes. Welcome back to Chat by the Pitch. This is Ian Babcock, your host. Today I sit down with Jada Davis, a former NCAA Division I player at Prairie View A&M, and now youth soccer coach here in Dallas. We dig into her multi-sport path from a small club to D1 scholarship and how she built a player-led culture with kids as young as 8. Insights that matter for soccer players, families, and coaches. So let's start this chat and head to the pitch.
Hi, my name is Jada Davis. I'm a former NCAA Division I women's soccer player, and I now coach at the highest youth levels. I also have a background in personal training and sports nutrition.
Awesome. So you said you started off, or you went to D1 college, and I know you're from the DFW Metroplex area. Yep. So when did you first start playing this beautiful game?
I started playing soccer when I was in first grade, I want to say, but I didn't stick with it. So it was just one of the first sports that I actually tried, but I didn't get too serious with it. I played recreationally along with a whole bunch of other sports. I played basketball, I played volleyball, I did track, cross country, karate, dance. I bounced all around in my youth.
Love it. So about what age did you finally, I love soccer? Or was it another sport that you said, I love this, and then later you found soccer?
I didn't decide that I loved soccer until late into high school. I liked it, and I always tell people I just like competing. I don't think it mattered what sport it was. I just love to compete. I'm a competitor. You could put Uno in front of me, and I'm probably going to win 9 out of 10 games. I just like to compete. And so it wasn't necessarily I fell in love with the sport itself until honestly I started coaching. But I definitely found a love for the game of soccer late into high school.
Wow. We have this conversation all the time. I have this conversation. We have it in our house. My son's 12, and it's like, you have to figure out what you want because you have to be good. Yeah. You have to start honing in and being focused. And he's going into 7th grade next year. So you're saying high school, that's a few more years.
Yeah. And it was like junior year or summer of my junior year. So that's when the summer right before I went into my junior year is when I decided maybe I should start taking this a little more seriously. And I think it was because I was good at everything. And so it never dawned on me that I would have to pick one thing until I had all the college conversations of, well, what are you going to do in college? And that's when I was like, well, let me pick something. And I picked soccer, and I spent hours and hours and hours perfecting my craft that summer and into my junior year. So it was a lot of unseen work.
It's crazy. So I really do want to talk about your younger years because it wasn't your main drive and your main love. It was, what was your main love as as an athlete? You said you just loved competing.
No,
Was
I
there a
loved
sport that you?
soccer. I did love soccer. I loved playing, but I wouldn't go watch a soccer game. I didn't care to do stuff outside of practice, but I did play soccer back and forth from ages 8 to probably 14. I would bounce around from sport to sport. I liked dance growing up, so I did dance for a lot of years. I started with karate. I went up to a purple belt when I was really little, and then I went straight to dance. I did dance until middle school, like seriously. And then once I got to middle school and all of the sports were offered for free, my parents were like, go for it, do whatever you want. And so that's when I was like, I'm doing everything. So I did everything that they offered, literally.
So did you feel like that gave you a good background as you moved through school and becoming an athlete? Did it give you a good moment to realize what your training needed to be? Being hyper competitive is one of the best things for anyone to go to a high level in sports. But did you feel like having a diverse sporting background was very important for you?
Yeah.
When you finally made that decision to play soccer?
Yes, I think it helped me a lot. I think also just coming from a personal training background and knowing now what I know, I think the cross training is also what helped me, because different sports, you're working different muscles, you're working your fast twitch or maybe your slow twitch, you're working different parts of your body. And so I think whenever I got to soccer, I was just always in shape because I played everything in the off season. And so it did help a lot. And I was way stronger than everybody.
That being said, did you play club soccer or did you play more on the recreational side until you got older? Because
It is confusing. So when I first started playing when I was young, I played recreationally. And then in second or third grade, my parents put me on an academy team. And I lasted on that academy team. I had a really tough coach. I lasted 2 seasons before my parents said, hey, you're not going to take this super seriously. You're just going to play rec because it's expensive. And so I was like, sure, I'll just play rec. I wasn't too mad about it. I was kind of sad to leave my teammates, but I kind of wanted to relax. My coach was really intense at that age. And so then I went to just playing indoor. So almost like futsal. And when I came back to outdoor soccer years later, like 13 or 14, the coaches were like, we can tell you've only been playing indoor in futsal because my touches were super tight and you could tell that I didn't really understand the outdoor game anymore. So yeah, that was kind of my soccer journey. I really didn't play club again until I was in high school.
wow, that's impressive. I can't really say much listening to what you just talked about being a diverse player with a great background. From the sounds of it, really made you who you are. From the sounds of it, you also have a personality trait that is so important to compete at the high levels. It's being competitive at every little thing you do. You mentioned that you'll play Uno and treat it.
Yeah, I've been banned from many Uno games. I get intense.
So no family card games in your family
No
growing
game
up
nights
then?
for me. I always have to like, hey guys, it's gonna get serious.
No, I love it. I have to ask this because out of curiosity, do you have older siblings that played sports? Or are you the oldest? Or are you an only child? Because that does make a difference, I feel, especially with older siblings, because I look at my two kids, they're super competitive with each other.
Yeah, I am the oldest, and my sister is 7 years younger than me. So I didn't have a little sister for a while. And I honestly think I got my competitive edge probably from my dad. My dad played collegiate football, and both of my parents were personal trainers growing up. And so I lived in the gym.
So you don't know anything other than the gym then?
I don't.
Then, which explains your passion that you've moved into today. So as you've gone through this experience, was there any aha moment you had, especially in that summer, where you made like, I'm going to go put everything into this? You said when you started to talk to college coaches, that's when you really made your decision. Was there another sport on the table other than soccer?
It wasn't another sport, but I was more interested in not going to college than going to college at the time. I wanted to get into real estate really, really bad. And so I was like, I'm not going to college. So I just never thought about like how I was going to get there because it was never a thought, to be honest. And then as it got closer and I was like, okay, I probably am going to college. I'm probably going to have to go to college. How am I going to pay for college? And I knew I was good at soccer. I knew I was really good. And so that's just what I stuck with. And I also felt the least amount of pressure playing soccer because every other sport, one of my parents had played before. So basketball, track, everything that I was good at, they had played, and I just felt a lot of pressure. So I wanted to stick with something where I could just create my own path and I didn't have to worry about, am I going to be as good as this person? And so summer of junior year is, I think, when I first had a college coach reach out to me after a club game. And I think that was my light bulb moment, because I realized, oh, I can go play in college, because I did struggle with comparing. I didn't play for like a super big club. I played for like a little private club. So I did struggle with some of my high school teammates playing for like Solar and the Texans, and them always talking about college coaches and being like, wow, they never reach out to me. So maybe that's just not the pathway I'm going to go. So I think my aha moment was when I did have that first coach. I think it was a JUCO in Kansas that reached out and said, hey, we'll pay for your school if you come play. And I think like literally the day that happened, the next day I was on the field, and I was like, okay, that person said it, so now I'm going to go to the school I want to go to. And that was the plan after that.
I have to ask, small independent club, I'm an advocate for them. Do you, as someone that has played now and now you're coaching, are you still having the advocating for smaller clubs? I know you coach for a certain club, and we can get into that, but do you see a comparison, or do you think it's up to the coach to make the difference?
I think both. So the coach matters, and unfortunately now sometimes the club does matter. The pay to play system that we have here in the States is very competitive, and I think a lot of times colleges don't even want to look at smaller clubs. But I don't think that means that you cannot play where you want to play just because you're playing for a smaller club. The way I knew what school I wanted to go to. I wanted to go to Prairie View A&M. That was it. And honestly, there was no plan B. So that's where I wanted to play. They had just won 2 back-to-back conference titles, and I wanted to go to a HBCU. So I said, it's a HBCU and it's the best soccer team. That's where I'm going. And that coach, she's a great coach. She now coaches in San Diego. After Prairie View, she went to Sam Houston. She's great. But I don't think she would have ever came to a game within my club and the league I was playing in, which I don't even remember what league it was. It's probably Classic League or something like that. But I knew she wouldn't. And so I made an effort to go to all of these ID camps. And that's kind of how I racked up my offers. And a lot of times, if you tell college coaches your situation or you send them film, they will cover the ID camps for you. So you just have to get there. And then when you get there, you do good and you're going to get an offer. And so that was kind of my plan. Prairie View A&M was the last offer I got. But for whatever reason, I wasn't discouraged at all. I was like, I'm going to get it. I had no doubt in my mind. I got a offer from every other school in the conference first before I got Prairie View A&M. And I made it my mission to get every single one so I could say I have everybody in the conference wants me. So come get me. And so, yeah, she was the last person to offer me. And honestly, it was probably the worst situation to put myself in, but I believed in myself that much. She offered me the least, and I truly believed all I need is one season, and I was absolutely correct. And so I don't think it matters what club you play on if you want to play in college. You just have to make an effort yourself, or versus the club making an effort for you to reach out to coaches, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes great sense. That's one of the things, sitting down and talking to some college coaches, the best advice one of them gave me, and I actually asked it. It actually came from a college director for a local club, and he always said, you write from the same email. You don't send them 15 different emails. You reply back to your email to them so they have the same email, the same correspondence for all your communication. So when they type in your name, they only get one email chain, and that's it. And they can delete the ones prior because all your information's already in there. And I'm like, that's brilliant. And he goes, don't clean it out. Keep on that replying, because if they delete any of the other emails, your whole chain is in that one email. I'm like, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
So you talked about your effort getting in. So what was the driving factor for you? Was it to get into college? Was it the point of wanting to go to that? I say Prairie View, A&M. Was it the whole point of wanting to go there is because you said the winning and all that stuff, or was there other programs there that you saw that you wanted outside of the soccer, or was it strictly the soccer and then you were going to figure out a career path?
Yeah, so I had no idea what I was going to study in college, to be honest. I just, like I said, I wanted to go to a historically Black college. That was number one on my priority list. And after visiting a lot of campuses, they were the nicest campus. So that was something that was important to me. And then they were the best soccer team. So it just seemed like the best scenario for me, and it fit. I also really like Southern University, and I really like that coach. I still speak to him to this day. So that was another option of mine. But Prairie View was definitely number one. It had honestly nothing to do academically. They have great academics there. But like I said, I was interested in real estate. So I was honestly like, I'm just going to get this degree and I'm going to do real estate. I didn't know what I was going to do. So it had nothing to do with that.
I love it. I love it. In your younger years, it's like part of this point. So from the sounds of it, you didn't have pressure from your parents. All the pressure was internal.
Yeah, no, my parents were great growing up. They didn't ever pressure me. A lot of people talk about the forbidden car ride home from games. I didn't have that experience with my parents. My parents didn't even it was just like good game and that was it. And I also think that had a lot to do with playing a sport that they knew nothing about. So the only thing that they could say is your efforts, but there wasn't a lot of that because I knew what my parents were sacrificing for me to play sports. And so it was just motivating in itself. My parents are paying for something. Why would I not go out here and try my best every game? And my parents were very supportive of that. And they never pressured me to go practice outside of practice. They took me to practice and that was it. And so I think that actually motivated me more because I see a lot of parents now where maybe it's a little bit too much pressure and kids just start to resent their parents because they just feel like someone's just poking the bear. And so I think you have to find a calm in between because sometimes if they would have pushed me just a little bit, I think I would have been, maybe I was good, maybe I would have been great. But at the same time, I wonder if I would have just been like, I don't want to do it anymore if you're going to make me do it type of thing.
So I can share this story because it was on my podcast. So Tracy Leon's daughter, she never pressured her to play soccer. And her daughter finally came to, why did you put pressure? She goes, it's your journey. It's not mine.
Right.
And she goes, but I would have probably maybe went to college. I don't remember what she said, but it was like, if you had pressured me more to go play, maybe I would have been more following in your footsteps or her dad's footsteps. And she's like, it's your journey. You have to want it. And I think that's the big difference. That's the struggle I think a lot of parents have with their kids. It's like your parents said they only comment on effort. I always tell my son, his little toe on his left foot has more talent in him than my whole body. But I can outwork him any day of the week.
Yeah.
And I go, that's all I can tell you. That's all you can tell me I can criticize on is your work ethic. And that's all I ask for because a coach will take someone that works hard versus someone with a ton of talent with no work.
Absolutely.
So going on with your collegiate, so when you're playing in college, what was that experience like? So what was your freshman year? You said you only took 1 year to get that full ride. So
yes. So going into college, I was extremely nervous because, like I said, I didn't come from a super grand club, and in high school, our team was okay. And so I was nervous going in, but I also believed in myself a lot. And so when I got there, initially, our coach that recruited us had left. And so we didn't have a coach for the first month of me being on campus. So all we did was work out with our strength and conditioning coach, and we had player-led practices. So I think that was also really helpful because there was no immediate pressure. But I will say the training sessions, even with there being no coach, were extremely intense compared to what I was used to. And so it was a little intimidating because everyone goes super hard. But it was a good experience, and it was something that I used to crave. I used to wish that people would try and practice. And so I was grateful for that. And then we finally got a coach about 2 games into our preseason. And she was very intense, very intense. And we played 2 games. I started both games as a freshman. So again, I was extremely confident. And then I got injured, and it was a season-ending injury. And so that was it for me. And I think that was devastating. I was very devastated. I couldn't even tell you what was going on in those months because I don't think I left my house. And so I was in a boot for the rest of that season. My trainer, Cabron, my poor trainer, Cabron, I used to beg her to play. I used to tell her I wasn't in pain. I'm fine. Let me go. I used every day. And very thankful for her for protecting me from myself because if I would have had any say, I would have been playing. And so she didn't let me play at all, of course. It was a fracture in my foot. So I was in a boot. And I came back in that off season, and sophomore year, we got another coach. So lots of coaching changes. We got another coach, and again, it was intimidating. Whenever you get a new coach, it's always terrifying. And He gave us a call in summer and he basically told all of us that he was cutting all of our scholarships so that he could recruit. And I was not happy about it. But again, I was like, he doesn't know me. He's never seen me play. He's never seen me practice. I'm not worried about it. And so we went back in and he actually let some of us keep our scholarships, I think, after preseason. And so I got to keep my scholarship. I don't even think I was a game in, and I refractured my foot. Yeah, I don't think we had played a game. So I refractured my foot, and I don't even remember how I felt. I know initially when I first did it, it was devastation, but I think that was when for the first time in my life, I felt like, oh, I'm gonna throw in the towel. I don't have any motivation anymore. And I talked to the doctor, our school doctor. He basically told me it's not going to heal on its own like we thought it was. And you can't have surgery because it's not a clean slice. And so he's like, you're going to be in a boot again for the whole year. And I was like, no, I'm not. I was like, I'm going to play. It's okay. It doesn't hurt that bad. It hurt really bad. And so he gave me the option of, hey, you can play. I'm not going to stop you from playing if you're just so determined to play on a fractured foot. But if you play, it's probably going to be your last time ever playing. And then the other option was to sit the whole season again and see if it heals on its own. And I was like, well, that's silly because it didn't do it the first time. So I'm not doing that again. I'm going to play. And if it's my last season, if it isn't, I'll have another one after this. And so I played. It was excruciating. I, to this day, regret it. And yeah, that was it for me. That was my whole college career. I played every game. I didn't really practice because I couldn't put much wear and tear on my foot. I would go into games. I would take off my big old obnoxious boot they gave me. I would play the game. They'd give me all the meds, and then I would come out of the game, put my boot on before I even went to shake hands. And it was that every game. And I don't know why that was allowed, to be honest, but it was bad. And after that, I just left after the semester. Didn't even want to be like around the team, honestly, because I was just devastated. That's how my career went.
So did you finish up college and then move into, obviously you're a sports trainer and that fun stuff, so you have qualifications. Did you go back, did you get that while you were in college, or did you find that love a little bit later?
So I got my personal training certification my sophomore year. I think when I was maybe in the summer, I don't know, when I had enough time. I got that and I started personal training immediately like that summer. Or I'm sorry, it may have been my freshman year because I think I was personal training before I went back in. So I was personal training before I got my actual bachelor's degree. And so I found a love and a passion for that, which I did not know would lead into like actual coaching, but I really did love that. And when I left PV, I transferred schools so I could do school online. And so I transferred to Texas A&M Commerce, and I worked full time as a personal trainer while I did school to finish my bachelor's. So that was like what happened right after I left.
That's interesting. So now, how did you make the jump from all that and not wanting to be around it to coaching a bunch of littles and finding your passion here?
So I was doing personal training and I randomly get a call from Toka. I don't know if you've heard of them, probably. Yes. And I get a call from Toka, and I didn't apply for any coaching job. Get a call from Toka, and they're like, hey, can you come in? We want to interview you. They knew about me from, I don't even remember like how, but I did not apply to coach because to be honest with you, I did not think I would be a good coach because I'm very competitive, and I always kind of disliked my coaches that were a little too competitive because it was just really hard on us when we were little. So I was like, I don't want to turn into the coaches that I hated. And so I kind of steered away from coaching because I was like, I don't want to traumatize anybody. And I started coaching at Toka. And so I coached there for 2 years until our facility actually literally shut down. And while I was coaching there, a lot of coaches would approach me and say, have you thought about coaching teams? And I'd be like, oh, no, you don't want me as a coach. And they were like, okay, whatever. And I had one coach that I used to play against. So him and we used to be like rivals in club soccer for some reason. I don't know what the politics are behind that. But every time we played, my coach was like, this is a must-win situation. And he didn't say that often. And so I used to play against him all the time. And he was the one he was like, hey, we need you. Even if you only coach one team, like, please come. We need coaches. And so I was like, okay, fine. And so I kind of I don't even think I picked up any teams at the time. I just helped with all of the teams, like assistant. and I ended up loving it. And so then the following year is when I started picking up teams. So I picked up a younger team, and then I continued assistant coaching for our Classic League FDL high school girls. And so it was weird how I got into it. It was very random.
That's great. You didn't jump in with the little, so that's what I see you on social media with, is the little ones now, but you jumped into the older ones, which is more harder because you get the personality, the sass, and especially if it's girls, and if it's boys, you get the attitude and grumpiness. So yeah. I don't know which one's worse. But how did you end up deciding that coaching was your passion and your path? And we can break down your coaching now. So
for me, I think when I started to see the impact that I had, because initially I got into personal training because to me it is an act of servitude, being able to help people in that way. And it's the reason I fell in love with personal training, is people coming to you and saying, you literally changed my life. I couldn't walk up the stairs. I can play with my grandkids now. And so I kind of found that same passion for serving and coaching, because especially my older girls, I will say it was the high school girls, I was very close in age to them at the time. So it was a little scary and rocky there at times, because sometimes I knew they were looking at me like a peer and not like a coach. But they would come to me and tell me very personal things, and I would be able to help them not only as a coach, but as a friend and a mentor. And when they started reaching out, especially when they got to college and telling me like, I was able to do this because you told me this, or I was able to overcome this because of this, I think that's when I was like, this is something that I'm going to fall in love with because of the impact. Same thing with my younger groups. It's not maybe as deep, it's more surface level, but they get just so excited to tell me about their day, or when they learn a new skill. It's just so extremely rewarding to see. And now I do like speed school type of thing, speed and skills. And I did the first one for free because a lot of kids don't get to do, I never did, private training and small group training. And that was never an option for me. And while I do privates and things like that at a cost, I also think it's important to serve the community and people who may not be able to. And so I think if it's something I'm passionate about, I'd like to share it with people. And so that's just how I love the impact. That's the best thing.
I like that. What advice would you give your younger self when you first started off coaching?
I would just say I was so scared to make mistakes. And that is something I've never experienced in my life. Every job or thing I've done, I've always attacked it like, if I mess up, it is what it is. I'll fix the mistake later. I'm always like, I'll fix it later type of person, but I'm gonna go all in, and I'm gonna give everything I have and then clean up the mess later. But when I got into coaching, I was so terrified to make mistakes. I believe it's because of the coaches I had growing up. I didn't have a good experience with any of my coaches growing up. I had some that were better than others, but I didn't have any good experiences. And so my worst nightmare was to do that to my kids. And so I was so terrified to say the wrong thing or to teach them the wrong thing the wrong way, and now they don't understand the concept and things like that, or now they're not confident on the field because I didn't coach them the correct way and they messed up. And I was just too scared of making mistakes. I'm not like that anymore. I'm very confident because I've seen what I did with such little experience. But yeah, I would say to my younger self to stop being so worried about mistakes, because I was terrified.
No one ever told you soccer is about making mistakes and how to overcome them on the pitch, because that's what games are.
Yes.
You make a bad pass and you have to overcome it.
Yes. I heard that a million times, but I don't know what it was. Like it was, and that was my first experience in my life feeling that way. So it was very odd to me. And the feeling hasn't completely gone away. I'm not worried about mistakes, but I still get nervous. Oh my gosh, I hope I didn't say that in the wrong way, because words are very powerful and like impact. And right now I'm doing my GA Credential of coaching, and they talk a lot about words and impact, especially when you're coaching young girls. And so it's a very slippery slope for me, because I'm always trying to say the right thing, but I also still want to be stern and make sure that they're doing the right thing. So it's a slippery slope, but I'm learning.
I'm going to tell you, and you are right, words do cut, and how the coaches talk to them. And I love that you're conscious of it. But where I'm going with this is that the coach, Sam, she says, I only coach till about 8 years old, then I pass them off. she doesn't want to coach older than that because it's not, she doesn't want to deal with the attitude, she says. I think it's just she loves that age.
Yeah.
But she doesn't, she doesn't mince words. She will have a laugh with them. She'll have a joke with them, but she'll also call them out on their mistakes. But it's how you phrase it and how you word it. It's always, what do you do in that moment? You do give the answer. You turn your body this way. Okay, then go out there and do it. Show me what you've been taught. And it's funny because all the girls will go up and give her hugs and be happy to see her. And all the other coaches that she's had with the girls, they all have been like, the girls will always come up to the coaches and give them hugs, and they always have been encouraging. And I think every coach goes through that phase of where you're at. I think when you become a parent, you realize it takes a lot to screw up a kid. And as long as you're willing to be humble about it, I think you're on the right path. So you said you're working on your coaching licensing or coaching certification. So where's that at for you?
So I'm working on my D license, but on top of that, so I got accepted into a program with the Girls Academy. So it's a Credential of Coaching Excellence. So it goes a lot into the psychology of coaching and players. And for the first time, they've done all female coaches. So this cohort has been all female coaches. And so it's been really great, different environment, because I'm used to going to these coaching courses and I'm the only woman or one of two. And so it's been really great to hear from a woman's perspective, because it is very different, and coaching girls is very different. And I don't think a lot of people realize how wildly different it is, especially when you do go into the psychology of it and how girls' brains operate. And so it's a 6-month program. So the capstone will be in June. But I've been learning a lot. We have weekly calls and we all talk about, I'm the youngest, so everyone else has much more experience than me. So it's been really great, because I feel like I'm getting years ahead because I'm learning from everyone's mistakes. But yeah, that has been my favorite coaching course I've done so far. It's been amazing. I feel like I'm actually learning.
I'm going to touch on that because that's a topic that's near and dear to my heart, is the sports psychology side. I love that you're focusing in on that your club is allowing you to have that opportunity and that you're taking the opportunity to do that. I don't know if it's club driven, but I'm assuming they're helping you with it.
They've been the best too. And that's a big reason why I like Dallas Surf so much, is because they're willing to invest in their coaches. And I think that's super important, because they don't have to do that. That's something I would have invested in myself because it's important to me. But they actually reached out, like after I got accepted, and I didn't even tell them. And they actually reached out and they said, hey, we saw you got accepted into this, where we want to help. And so they've been fantastic.
And I think that's important. So as you're halfway through it, or roughly, what has been the greatest impact so far on you on this course that you've taken? Because the psychology side of the game is huge on boys and girls. We're going to talk the girls side because that's what you're coaching. So what has been the greatest impact on something you've learned on the women's side of the game? Because it's huge.
I have learned so much. I'm probably scatterbrained thinking about it. I think one of the more impactful things was our first in-person kickoff was in Philadelphia. And those sessions, I knew what I was getting into to a certain extent, but I didn't realize how deep we were going to go into everything. And there's actually I think she's a sports psychologist that led that presentation. And she, in detail, explained exactly how our words are impactful to players and how it doesn't matter what we mean when we say it. It matters how they interpret it. And she did a visual, and everything clicked for me. Like, even thinking about things that my coaches had said to me when I was younger, and maybe that's why I always was like that when this happened, or maybe and so I think when I had that light bulb moment of, oh my goodness, this all makes sense now. And I've always been very careful with my words because I was sensitive growing up. I was competitive, but my parents used to not even have to punish me. All they had to say is, we're disappointed, and that was it. That was my punishment. I would be like, oh my God, what? And they always joke about it now because they're like, we don't know why you didn't. When they would tell me that, it was just like, oh my goodness. And so now knowing the impact that words have, I'm like, oh, that's why it hurt me so bad. That's why that's all you had to say to me. And when she went into that detailed presentation, that was really impactful. And then there was another presenter, and they all work through the course with us as well in the Zoom meetings each week. I'm trying to think of her Instagram. She posts really good stuff. It's like Tree Roots Culture, I think, but she posts really good visuals, and I'm a visual learner, about culture and how to build a culture, which I had always not. I'm like, how do you build a culture? Because even as a player, I used to get frustrated because I'm like, we have no culture. In high school, we had no culture. In college, we had no culture. We had no standards. We had no, my teammates are going to be like upset if I do that. It was kind of just like a free for all. And I realized that even as a player. And so when I became a coach, that was like my first order of business. I was like, we're going to create a culture and a foundation and we're going to build on it. But I was like, how do I do that? And she did a great job of demonstrating exactly what culture is and how we build it and how it's player led, which I always knew to a certain extent that players had to be invested, but I never considered culture to be player driven. I always just considered it to be coach driven and maybe player led. And so when she helped us with that, I think that was super impactful because now I know what to do going forward in building a culture and maintaining that culture, because I think that in the end is what's going to create powerful programs and clubs and teams.
I love that. So for about a year, I was obsessed, and this is putting it lightly, with culture. Everything I read was about culture. You have some really good coaches in your club that we can talk about later, but it's culture driven is so important and such an important factor for teams to be successful. You have a coach in your club that it's all about the players. They have to make the disciplines. They have to do everything. And it changes the dynamic. It's no longer coach to player. It's player to coach and player to player. And it transforms the game. I think I can only give the examples because it's the example I have. What popped in my mind, Tracy Leone said that they had a guest speaker come in and talk to their players. And one girl was late getting there. And she goes, it was literally a minute. It wasn't... It started at 8 o'clock. They showed up at 6 o'clock. They showed up at 6:01. And the next morning, she's walking out to practice, and all the girls are out there doing their team for having that one player late. And she thought she was late to practice. She's like, I have to hurry up. Am I late? And she realized that the players all got together, knew what the consequences were for that, and they all got together and did it as a team. And I think having a culture is great. So if you don't mind talking about it, I didn't prep you for this at all, but what would be the most important thing for you to start your culture? You're starting with young kids, but I'm hoping from the sounds of it, I hope for your sake that you get to coach older kids and teach them what you were missing and what I call the North Texas culture of high school football coaches coaching soccer. And what would you like to do to start building your culture so families will know who you are as a coach?
Yeah, so I'm completely player led. My 8-year-olds, I'm like, I'll tell one of them go lead warmups, one of them go, and for the first 20 minutes of practice, that's all player led, my 8-year-olds. And they get on to each other. They're like, nope, we're not going hard enough. We're not doing this correctly. Or yesterday we're doing the passing drill. I didn't say a word. And one of my players, little 8-year-old, guys, this is too slow. And for me, that's not something that happened overnight. That was me literally having to build that brick by brick. And I wanted it to be player led. That's how I wanted it to be because I want this team to stick together. And as they get older, it's their team. It's not my team. It's them. They're playing. I'm not playing. So I'll guide them and I'll help them with the game itself, but they have to hold each other accountable. And so my program is always going to be player led, player driven, because that's the most important person is the player. I can instill my ideas, but that's really about it. And so I think it's super important that my players have some sort of backbone, and they do. All my little girls, they will not. We had one game, we had no subs, we had 3 players, and the team was good in everything, and they beat them. And I didn't tell them, like, I'm expecting y'all to win. I didn't tell them anything. I just said, go out and play. And they don't accept anything shorter than greatness. And that's just something that's come from me, hours and hours of competitive. We're going to win. We're going to win. We're going to win. They hate losing. And I love that because you have to hate losing. And so that's how they are, player driven. They could run a whole practice by themselves. And I love it.
So this is with 8-year-olds. So I'm going to ask this so parents can understand. Do you have captains, or do you just say, this week, you're responsible for player 19, you're responsible for warm up. Player 8, you're responsible for helping with setting up practice or whatever it may be. Is it just random so they are all being taught at the same level to appreciate the grandness of being leaders?
Yep.
I guess that's the best way of putting it.
With the players who are eager to lead, that's who I always go with first. And then secondly, I go with the people who don't want to lead at all. So the people that are kind of in there in the middle that are like, oh, I'll do it. I don't care though. Those are kind of the people I don't really pick at too much. But the people who want to lead, I think that we have to nourish that. We have to nourish natural leadership. I know a lot of times growing up for me, it wasn't nurtured, and I've always been a leader. I was captain in high school and everything. I've just always wanted to lead. When it comes to group projects, I have a hard time not just doing the whole thing myself. I'm a natural leader, and I think it wasn't nourished a lot. And so I kind of watered it down growing up, and that's not something I want to do. And so these could be our future presidents and things like that. So I'm not going to water that down. And so when people want to lead, go, do it. And then people who are like, no, I do not want to lead. I don't want to do warm-ups. I don't want to do anything. I don't even want to speak. I actually don't even want to be here. I'm like, perfect. You next. So now you're going to lead. And so that's kind of my idea. Natural leaders first, people who don't want to lead at all second, because it's going to build your confidence, and it has. And the players that absolutely refuse to speak on the field now, they're perfectly fine telling their teammates that they're not working hard enough now, because I made it to where they are confident and they know in a leadership role. I also don't let my kids talk negative to each other. So if I have someone that's leading something and it's negative comments, it's shut down very quickly. And so that no one is scared to lead, or no one is scared to speak up. And so that's kind of the environment. And then the people that are right there in the middle, they still lead. I rotate them, but they're all good.
So when I coached, one of the most important things I learned was I coached my son when he was about 6 to 7, and was having the kids write out their goals. We actually did a little survey. The parents sat down, and you could tell that which parents wrote out the goals and which parents actually asked their kid what the goal was. And one of the little boys, his goal was to go play. We had 2 teams. We had an A squad and a B squad. That's what we called them. We just called them A and B.
Yeah.
The kids knew the difference between the 2 squads. They knew that. And one of the kids' goal was to go play on the A squad. And so when we set up the season, we set up the structure so he had a chance to go play on the A squad. So he could find a way to achieve his goal. And yes, it was given to him, but the amount of confidence he gained by playing in that one game with all the kids that played at a higher level, it made a difference for him. And the light bulb, like every kid, the light bulb comes on at an early age. So you're talking about training these little girls to be leaders. How are you seeing it? You talked about them calling each other out and being positive. How are you figuring this out to be a long-term culture? Because are you seeing kids staying with you more because parents are seeing like, oh my goodness, they're building each other up, they're positive, they're growing? I don't know if you're winning all your games or not, but there's a difference between development and winning. And are you seeing the development outlast the change? I guess the seasonal change.
Yeah. No, this group has been great. They were under a different coach initially before I got them 2 seasons ago, and they didn't win games. And then when they were under me, I think we lost maybe 1 game that first season. And I don't think any of that had to do with their skills and their footwork. I think that was maybe 15% of it. I think a lot of it just had to do with them learning how to take accountability and work hard. Because in the beginning, it was a lot of, she gave me a bad pass or what. And for me, it was important that we fix mistakes. We don't worry about them, we fix them, just how we were talking about earlier. And I think that wasn't a concept they had their head around yet. And so now that they know that mistakes are okay, which is a big thing for me as well, I don't care if you make mistakes as long as you fix them. I think they're more confident because they know I'm not going to get upset if they miss the goal. And they answer quickly. If they miss a goal, they'll look at me and I don't say anything. I'm not super verbal, but they know, well, I got you. And then next you'll see they'll go and they will do their best to score goals. So I think for them, it just had a lot to do with maybe the verbiage or how it's being translated to them. Maybe they weren't understanding, but as soon as they understood, they weren't as nervous to make mistakes. They started winning every single game. And going into this spring season, we had to go into a higher division when you get first or second, I guess you have to bump up. So the division's a little bit better. And initially, they saw the first time I ever got really frustrated was our first game. And after that game, I was like, that was not appropriate of me. And I didn't do anything crazy, but I was super frustrated because it was night and day from what had happened last season. And so a lot of that had to do with players not coming to training. And that was frustrating to me because I know all of these things can be fixed. And so I took my frustration out on them. And next practice I said, that's on me. That was my fault. And I shouldn't have reacted that way. And I also think that's big. I think them seeing that a coach or someone that they see in a leadership role is willing to admit when they're wrong makes them more comfortable as well to admit when they're wrong. And so after that, again, we didn't lose any games again. So it's been good. I think they're developing really, really well. I think we just have to have a little bit more buy-in, but I think after we get a little bit more buy-in and when I work with them a little bit longer, because it's only been a year and a half, I think that's when you'll really start to see the development.
Do you want to stay with the younger ages, or are you hoping to follow this team up until as long as they'll have you?
So I want to follow this team for sure, but I do like the younger groups. I think they're a lot of fun. They still love the game, and it's very refreshing, especially when you work with older groups who they don't even want to come to practice. They don't want to come to practice. And when they are at practice, they don't want to be there. It's very refreshing to have the little kids. I feel like if you're going to do one, you might have to do the other just to balance it out. But I also like the older groups too. The older groups are great when they're on, and when they're fully there, they're amazing, especially because they're so self-sufficient. But I love the younger kids. I love the little kids. So
as a parent, you said buy-in, and I think that's a very hard thing. Do you talk to parents? Do you have these formal conversations? And I call them parent education moments because we as parents are not the smartest people when it comes to youth sports. And we normally just follow the record, to be honest. The buy-in with the parents, it takes time. And from the sounds of it, you have had parents stay with you because if you've been with it for a year and a half, that's 3, especially with the younger ages, that's 3 contracts now. Yeah. Are you finding people more willing to give you, because you are a younger coach, there's nothing wrong with being a younger coach, it's just parents are biased.
Yep. For me, I have struggled with that aspect, and I've reached out for help a lot in communicating with the parents of what development looks like versus winning. And we win games, but I do have a lot of talks about, hey, we may have won that game, but that was absolutely horrible. And that's not the way I say it to the kids, obviously, but to the parents, that was very bad. That was crazy. And I think a lot of the times when you have parents that maybe played at a high level or a competitive level, there's way more of an understanding of just because you win doesn't mean it was a good game, or just because your player played the whole game does not mean that they are the best player. Maybe that's just what we needed in that moment. Or just because your player didn't get the minutes that you wanted doesn't mean that your player is the worst player in the world. It just means that maybe they're not having a great day. And so that's been a problem area for me, is just finding a way to communicate with the parents in a way that they can understand. Because for me, I see the development, but I also see a plateau coming if we don't have parents that are buying in and bringing their kids to training. And that's been the biggest issue for me, is I only get players that come to training when we have a game, like the next event's a game. And for me, it does get frustrating because it's an amazing career. Coaching is very rewarding, but there's not a lot of thank yous in this career. And so when you're dedicating your time and your hours and your own money to train these kids, and you know the potential that they have, but you have limited buy-in, it can get frustrating and it can get a little overwhelming. But I will say, like 80% of my parents know, they understand, they get it, but sometimes that 20% is what can create like a complete disaster. And so that's what I'm trying to avoid, is the disaster, and kind of just picking the weeds. That way we can have smooth sailing.
No, I love that. Do you, as a parent dealing with having a kid that deals with the age roughly you have, are you super communicative with the parents, giving them the understanding of what's going on? I'm willing, basing on your social media, because that's the only way I can track who you are as a coach, and the things that you're posting are your sessions and things that you're working with them. They aren't always beautiful, but you see the determination in the player's face. It's not like they're just going through it. Yes, they're 8 years old, but you can see them focused in the moment. And that's hard to capture.
Yeah.
At that age.
Yeah.
Are you finding parents that are more bought in, willing to take the time, willing to see things from a different angle? Are their players are more relaxed and there's less pressure on them? Or do you think it's because of what you're able to create in the environment that you're creating and the parents are buying into that?
I'm not even really too sure, to be honest. I think as far as communication with the parents, I over communicate, and sometimes I catch myself like, okay, well, maybe they didn't need to know like all of that. But the reason I do that is because I do want them to know exactly what we're doing and why we're doing it, because it makes a difference of why we were doing one drill for 45 minutes. Because a lot of parents, they want to see a scrimmage or something, and it's, yeah, I get that, and I get that playing is important, but sometimes we have to focus on the little things, and sometimes we have to do it for the whole entire practice, and this is why we did it. And so sometimes I do find myself over communicating with the parents, and honestly, I don't get much response from them ever, but I still do it because as courtesy. I just want them to know what we're doing. Even if they read it and they don't respond, they know what we're doing. Same thing with games, and well, why did my player not play the whole entire 40-minute game? I like to over communicate why your player wasn't at practice the last 6 practices, or maybe your player was there all 6, but she wasn't there. She was only physically there. And so I like to over communicate. That way there's little to no confusion. And I've realized as I've started to over communicate, I don't get as much backfire, because even if the parents don't respond, at least they know exactly what's going on. And sometimes I'll be like, even today I sent a message and I'm like, hey, like feedback is appreciated. I'd like some feedback. And I got literally nothing, not one message. And so sometimes it can be like, ooh, I don't know. Am I asking too many questions? Am I over communicating? But when it comes to especially club and academy, when you're investing your money, when you could be playing rec at this age, I just feel like it's courtesy and it's important. And so I think some of the parents like that and they buy into that idea. And I think some parents just are like tunnel vision, my kid's the best and I don't like the way you do it. And they'll weed out and stuff like that. So I'm not super worried, but I think it's a combination.
The best thing I ever heard from a coach talking about strong college culture was Jason Cardney. And he talked about the parents will self-select out. The parents that think little Johnny, little Susie are the best players on the pitch, they'll self-select out if their players, if they consciously or subconsciously accept it or not, that their player is not the best. Or they may be the best, but they don't agree with the philosophy. So is there anything with the culture that is you're learning to make it special? Because as a parent, over communication, a huge miss among all coaches. I can tell you the coaches that over communicate during the yearly evaluation they give their player, or every 6 months or every 3 months, as a family, we've always thanked them and always tell them like how appreciative we are, because we've been around the block enough to know that you have coaches that won't send more than a message an hour before practice or even 30 minutes before practice. It's canceled tonight because I can't get there. Or I had something else come up that's more important tonight. And it just kills you as a parent. And if you can figure out that communication side. We had a coach, literally he coached internationally on a national team, and he gave us his whole entire schedule for every single game that he knew he had on a team calendar. And then who would be taking over during that time frame. Everything was already pre-planned out for the year. And then if training was he was really good about, okay, it's supposed to rain in 2 days. This is where we're training in 2 days because it's supposed to rain. He wasn't missing practice. He was on top of it. And by far one of the best coaches on that side of the game.
Nice.
You're trying to find the best person. Right now, what advice would you give parents when they're looking at teams, older or younger, when it comes to the culture side?
When they're looking at teams like to join?
Yeah. We're getting that lovely tryout time season right now. And
we are.
This is a chance for you to share your opinion and let everyone know how you feel. So
for me, I think what's most important and what I would look for in a coach for my child would be someone that values the person first, the player first before the athlete. So I just feel like a lot of coaches don't try to have any type of relationship with their players. And when I say that, like they don't know our player's favorite color at the moment or what's going on at school or sometimes even what grade they're in. It gets bad. And so I think for me, the most important thing is knowing that a coach cares about your player first, because no matter how they coach, it's not going to be like interpreted well if you feel like your coach doesn't even know you. And I've seen that firsthand. I've lived that firsthand. You don't have respect for people when they don't care to get to know you. So I think that's most important, a coach that cares, obviously. And you would think that'd be like, duh. But I think a lot of parents are like, oh, let's just look at their credentials. Oh, they played pro and they won a national championship and whatever. We're going to go with them. Their team is good. But it's maybe that coach actually isn't a good fit for your child. And now your child's riding the bench all year because they're butting heads with their coach and you just wasted a whole season. That could have been a breakthrough season. And for me, just finding a coach that cares about your child is probably most important. And then after that, a team or a club with culture. Surf, for example, we talk about culture every single time we have a meeting, and every single time. Culture is always number one, and they want all of our teams to have the same principles and the same standards. And I think finding a club where you can find that, you can ask any coach like, hey, what's the standard here? Even if it's regional, even maybe just in my region, if it's like the standard is this, and you ask every coach and you're like, okay, they have a standard and they have a way that they do things and this is how they do it. I think that's important because at least you have something that you're following versus just going to a club where it's kind of just dilly-dally, do whatever you want. Each coach has their own team, but nobody's like, there's no standard. So I would say a coach that cares, a club that cares about your child and their development and that there is a pathway for development. Because a lot of times too, there's no pathway. So it's once your kid is good, there's nowhere for them to go. So I think pathways are important and standards and culture. So that's what I would look for.
Now, a few more questions on your coaching. You said you're getting your license. You have your D license or you're working on your
I'm working
license?
on my D license.
More power to you. That's when I stopped coaching. I was just signing up for my D license and then I lost my team. As a parent, what are you finding useful in your credentials right now? And then I'll wrap this up here.
So I'm not even going to lie. So the grassroots and the D license for me is a lot more about like designing trainings and connecting it to the game. And to me, that is very person to person, coach to coach, program to program. And I was even talking to my boss about this the other day. I said, you have teams that come from other countries that play on a patch of grass and can come whoop us. I don't think it matters. For example, like a lot of things we talk about, and I understand why we talk about these things, but some things we talk about is like they need to be playing on a full size field every single practice. And it's just yes and no. Some things I agree with, and some things I'm like, let me just pass the test because it's just some stuff doesn't translate for me in that aspect. And I think that's why I like the credential of coaching excellence so much, is because I could actually translate that and I could actually see, oh, yes, I see exactly why this has impact versus some of us we can't play on a full field. We can't set our trainings up like this. So when I'm learning these things, I'm like, this is great and this is fantastic. When we have 15 teams on 2-3 fields, it's like, we can't set up our training. So I think some things are impactful and they make sense with that license itself. And some things are just hard for me to hang on to because I'm like, I literally can't do this. So I think it just depends. If you're a person that's you want to improve your training sessions and things like that, it's very helpful. And it's helped me in especially transition times in my practice. I never thought about that until I did that licensing. And I'm like, oh my God, my transitions do take too long. I'm losing 15 minutes every single practice because my transition, stuff like that, you're learning something, and then other things, it's kind of like you can't translate it if you don't have the right facilities. So I'm learning from both, but I would say the credential of coaching excellence and the psychology and things, I've enjoyed that the most out of everything.
Awesome. And my favorite question to ask everyone who I interview. Before I get to it, I have one question to ask. Is there anything that I have missed or we have not covered that you think is important to share with parents or players at this moment, or coaches even?
Oh, no, not necessarily. I think I've shared a lot of what I believe in and how I coach and the culture that I believe in. So I don't really have anything to add.
Perfect. So I'll lead with my last question. Who has been the greatest influence on you as a player and now as a coach? Because they're two different things. They can be the same people. It could be one person. It could be as many as you can think of listing. It's whoever you want to name. Okay,
yeah. So I have two people that inspired me the most with soccer. So when I initially started playing academy soccer, I had a teammate and her name was Jaden. And when I initially started on that team, nobody would talk to me. We were all shy little kids. and cliquey. And so no one talked to me. So I sat on the other side of the goal by myself, and I was thinking in my head, because I was shy, I said, in my head, I'm like, I'm never coming back. My parents are not taking me back here. I don't want to be on this team. And she came over there and she sat with me, and every single time we had to get water, everyone went over there and she came to me. And I literally never forgot that moment. And she was my best friend on the team. And so she inspired me a lot to continue with soccer. When I got to the 6th grade, she passed away in a four-wheeling accident. And so I think that was my first time experiencing loss. And so it inspired me to continue playing for her. And so she was a big inspiration in my life until, well, she still is. And then a bigger impact that somebody had on me was when I was playing in high school. We were playing for Revolution, and my teammate Sydney Morris, we were like best friends on that team. Like when she didn't go to practice, I didn't go to practice. It was very serious. And we ended up both committing to Prairie View A&M. I remember the day she told me at practice, hey, I'm committing to PV2. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be amazing. I was so excited. And we did everything together that year because we knew we were going to be roommates and we were going to be on the same team. And we did conditioning together and everything. And our last workout that we had together, we were doing our summer training before we went to school. And we were doing hill runs, and I freaking hate those. And my trainer was like, come on, guys, like one more. And I was like, I literally can't do one more. This is a lot. And Sydney looked at me and she said, we got this. And those words I will never forget. That evening, she got in a car wreck and she also passed away. And so from that point moving forward, I know her mom had told me, she was like, you have to be great for her. And I think those words stuck in my head. We got this is something I live by. I think about it every day when I'm feeling down or I'm feeling like I'm not doing enough. We got this. And her parents are very involved in my life as well. And so she's like a huge inspiration. You will see her name everywhere on my page a lot of times, just because that is somebody that she's like my sister. She's a huge inspiration, and all my players know about her. I have tattoos everywhere. People ask what this 24 is. I was going to be 23 and she was going to be 24. So a lot of people are like, is that Kobe? And I'm like, no, it's not Kobe. And so, yeah, both of them have been on my cleats. It said Jaden from 6th grade up. It always said Jaden. And then in college, my cleats were Jaden and Sydney. So they're my biggest inspirations, and they're the reason that I just want to continue going with the game of soccer for sure.
If you take one thing from today's conversation with Jada, make it this: the size of your club doesn't decide the size of your dream. Jada wasn't at a big name club. College coaches weren't coming to her games, so she went to them. Film, ID camps, relentless self-belief, and didn't stop until every school in the conference had an offer for her, including the one she wanted most. And when her playing career ended sooner than it should have, she turned that same great fight into coaching, building teams where 8-year-olds run their own warmups, hold each other accountable, and refuse to accept anything short of greatness. For parents heading into tryout seasons, find that coach who knows your player before they ever know their stats. And for players, nobody's coming to discover you. Go make yourself impossible to be ignored. A big thanks for Jada for joining me today. Hey everyone, if you guys have enjoyed this podcast, have enjoyed what I've been trying to do, the messages that I'm putting out there, please give me some ratings, some stars on all the podcast sites that you listen to this on. Give me a review, share with others. The more I can make this grow, the more I can continue doing this. I'm really trying to make a difference in our soccer community. So I hope you guys have enjoyed all this. And until next time, I'll see you at the pitch.